patch 7.35b, and this is the offlane tier list. I hope I don't get demonetized. Getting into it, the dog, we have Sand King. So, for some Gaben forsaken reason, this hero got nerfed. They reduced the damage on Caustic Finale. They rescaled his Q, which is actually a very slight buff, but a pathetic one. And then they reduced his stats. And I would imagine that this is because the beta testers were like, hey, this Veil into Shiva's build is way too overpowered. Every offlaner is going to go for this item. And Sand King is one of the biggest Veil enjoyers in the game. He's going to be broken. So it turns out Veil into Shivas is indeed good on every single offlaner. That is a great build. But Sand King is not overpowered. He is dog shit because of the nerfs to him. He was bad on the previous patch. Night Stalker, the changes to this hero were the Aghanim Shard heals you for a little bit less. Void has the mana cost on it got rescaled. These changes, in my opinion, don't really matter that much. When I look at this hero after the 7.35b Solar Crest nerf, where it no longer gives you, the caster, the attack speed or the movement speed, that was the build everybody was doing on Night Stalker that made him probably B tier when 7.35 just came out. He obviously benefits massively from both move speed and attack speed, and the bubble that you put on yourself, the shield, is very nice. Now he only gets the shield, and there's not a great build to go for on Night Stalker. Shivas is not super viable on him, and all the Shivas heroes are super OP right now because it's still very good. Underlord, this is a Shivas builder. You're probably going to go for some sort of Veil build. However, because of the Solar Crest meta, there's quite a lot of like overwhelming magic damage and just overwhelming damage in general. Like Death Prophet, for example, very strong. Batrider, very strong. Not necessarily as an offlane position hero, because of course you can see Batriders right there in the D tier. Maybe he's a little bit higher. I might be underrating. Anyway, we'll get to him later. I think Underlord would be a lot better if Firestorm was better in this patch, if there were a lot more illusion heroes being played, like your Terrorblades and PLs, but they're just okay. The changes to Underlord were his W now applies a little bit of damage, and he got some cast point changes. These are nice, but it doesn't make him broken by any means. So Batrider, I would have actually put this hero in like A or like maybe even S tier at the start of the patch, because Mage Slayer now applies a DPS debuff. And this debuff ticks 2 times per second, which was working with Sticky Napalm. And people were going for that and just absolutely obliterating people with Bat and the damage that he does. That got nerfed. That was an oversight. And because of that, I think the core build on Batrider is not that sick. Most people are playing this as a 4 and a 5, and it is actually decent as a 4 and a 5. Centaur. So this hero's biggest issue, there's a few issues, and Sand King suffers from the same thing, and that is that Blink Initiators are not super popular in the offlane. People are still playing these kind of like Vlad's, takes your towers, takes over an area type heroes. Centaur is not that. Vanguard is not a very popular item. The build is Shiva's or Solar Crest, and Centaur is not really a massive fan of either of those things. I think people would probably opt to go for a Veil build on him, but he really enjoyed Vanguard because of how his passive works. So, and Centaur also got nerfed on the 7.35 patch because he was very strong in the previous one. So all of these things, in my opinion, have resulted in him in being D tier and having a pretty low win rate. Bristleback, so they actually buffed this hero because they seem to think they over-nerfed him on the previous patch. Good riddance, fuck Bristleback. They made the threshold on his Bristleback better, so it is going to proc more as you level it up, but Bloodstone was just nerfed in the B patch, so it no longer gives mana, which is not a huge deal for Bristleback, but Ancient Apparition is still decent. Vessel is still a very good item. Lots of people are going for that. Bristle's not a great solar buyer. He's not a great Shiva's buyer. Like, you're probably going to go for it anyway because it's busted. But you need to build Vlad's in Solar Crest to be an offlaner right now. We'll see if that changes. They just buffed Vlad's in the 7.35b patch. Legion Commander, another hero that suffers from the item meta. The build on Legion would still be Blade Mail into Blink. This is not a super strong build. That's kind of like a previous patch thing. I know people were going solar on her at the start of the patch because, like I said, with regards to Night Stalker, you could put this on yourself and get that attack speed and get that move speed, catch up to people with duel, kill them with the duel while giving yourself this bubble. That was nice, but she can no longer do that, and if you're going to go for the solar, you're playing her as like a save hero, and people don't really do that on Legion anymore. It's a lot more about farming those dual stacks. So Legion, in my opinion, I mean, she might be She might be C tier. Like, I could see when the meta changes that maybe I'm underrating her, but for now, her win rate is very low. Necrophos. Necrophos was very strong on the previous patch when Heart was powerful, and prior to the nerfs in the later letter patches of 7.34, he fell off at that point, and the build, I think the build shifting away from Heart of Tarrasque really hurt this hero. He really enjoyed that build. And then also, Pugna is one of the strongest heroes in the game right now. Batrider is very popular. There's a lot of magic damage being picked right now because Solar Crest is such a strong item. And it's, of course, a physical shield. So Necrophos does not like that. He takes extra magic damage. And there's a lot of that going around right now. Chaos Knight, they nerfed his crit again in the 7.35 patch. They nerfed the mana cost on his ult as well, which is not hugely significant, but the crit being nerfed over and over and over again has really hurt his laning. He's still a fine hero once you get past the laning phase, but I feel like a big reason you picked him is to get kills in the lane and to sustain in the lane. Lanes matter quite a lot right now. Chaos Knight is a physical damage hero and playing into a bunch of Solar Crests, like 4 of them per fucking team still. He doesn't build Solar Crest himself. He doesn't build Shivas himself. So if you want to play this hero, it's probably a carry, and I think it's an okay carry. It's not bad. Nature's Prophet, similar boat to CK in the sense that I think he just is better in another role. I don't see why you would play this as an offlaner when it's a perfectly fine 5. In fact, because Solar Crest no longer gives you the attack speed, I would say as a 5, you'd rather TP in and put Solar on somebody else, like your carry, rather than putting it on yourself, which is what people were doing. And this hero probably was a B tier or A tier offlaner when Solar gave you attack speed. But maybe a lot of heroes were B or A tier offlaners when that was the case. Dazzle. Oh boy, this hero is... I was considering putting it in dog shit tier, but I saw the win rate wasn't that bad. It was like 48%. Not with so many games, but it wasn't bad enough that I wanted to put it in dog shit tier, but maybe it is. Maybe it's just the people that are playing it are really good at it and still losing. But basically the issue with this hero is you can now deny people that his Q is on, which is very rough for the laning phase. You can no longer use your ult to refresh items. That was like the main reason people played Dazzle. I feel like I don't even have to say anything else. Like that was why you played this hero, especially as a core, because when you farm, you're fucking farming for items, you know? Like that's the whole point of scaling, is to get those items and reduce the cooldowns on them. And now you can't really do that. So if anything, this hero is a support. And even as a support, I'm not sure if it's really that good. Next up, we have the biggest, thickest, juiciest tier, and that is the C tier. So starting off, we have Mars. I know a lot of people are going to be saying, hey, Jenkins, what the fuck? Pro players are playing this all the time. It's very good. They're losing. This has a very low win rate in 8K plus pubs. I think the changes to him were necessary. He was very bad. Bulwark active now gives you phased movement. It lets you protect people 200 units in front of Mars's shield. They've reduced the cast point on his ult, which means you can spear into ult. But to be completely honest with you, it's not like there were really... That's the one thing people talk about, like, okay, you can now do this on Mars. He's fucking busted. There weren't that many scenarios where that was that useful. It was very cool, and when it was useful, it was really cool, like against some Storm Spear with the BKB or something. But most of the time, you could just arena into spear people anyway. So this hero is a little better, but also a bit of the same, and still suffers from the same issues. Tiny. So this is an S tier hero in general, I would say. They buffed his Q, they buffed his W, with extra damage. They gave him extra cleave on his tree. I think as an offlaner, it's not as good as it is as a support, but just because it's an S tier hero, I think Tiny can be played in an offlane role. And that is especially true depending on what you're laning with. Like if you pick Tiny with like a Willow or Rubik, it feels really good. If you pick it with a Tusk, it can feel a little bad, something like that, you know? So you do have to be careful. Wraith King, I don't think this hero is significantly worse than he was on the previous patch. People are still playing heroes that you run to in lane from the mid lane and like gank for, and they push towers and they control areas. So Wraith King's very good at doing that, despite the nerfs that he's gotten. Radiance is still decent. Nobody's going for Midas. It's pretty much just like a Radiance rush from what I've seen. The only issue with Wraith King is that a lot of these I'm going to take over a lane type heroes are Vlad's builders, because Vlad's just got the cost reduced on it by 250. And then also there's no recipe, so it can be disassembled, which is very nice for certain heroes. Venomancer, I think this is another hero that is quite good right now. I know they buffed a couple of things about him, like they gave his ult a little bit more damage. They gave his Plague Wards a little bit more damage in the early levels. And these are good things. He's definitely solid. But I think as a 5 position, he's probably better, or a 4 position, he's probably better. Also, this hero very much so enjoys being that Solar Crest building, you know, I'm going to be tanky and suicide bomb and be annoying and really hard to kill sort of hero. So he likes the shield that comes from the Solar Crest. He doesn't really care too much that like, oh no, the attack speed, the move speed, whatever. He's like running in and suiciding anyway. Axe. So the big thing with this hero is that now his Culling Blade, instead of granting attack speed, grants armor, like a lot of armor. And that's kind of fucking insane. It's like it's like a save / protection for your team if you kill one guy. And oftentimes Axe is jumping one hero at the start of a fight and killing them. And so you're just setting yourself up for an amazing team fight if you get the jump, which I think is awesome. So this hero might actually be higher tier. My only qualm with Axe is that he's a Blink Initiator, and that's just not a hugely popular way of playing the off lane. If it was, he'd probably be S tier because of the Culling Blade change. Omniknight. So the significant change that was made to this hero is that his ult is now single target, but it has 2 charges and a lower cooldown. And to be honest, this is a pretty nice change for him because a lot of the time you were using this to save one guy anyway. So this to me is almost in most cases, this is a buff. On top of that, there is now a phylactery upgrade item, and people were playing around with this Hammer of Purity plus phylactery build before. That is currently very good because it builds into something that applies your attack damage, and so does the Hammer of Purity, yada yada. It does a lot of fucking damage. But I would say this is a niche hero. You have to be very good at it, and it owns certain heroes in lane. But like I said, you have to be good at it. Earthshaker. This is definitely a good hero. I've seen people mess around with a Bloodstone build on him, which is interesting because it gives you AoE now. But most of the time, I just see people abusing the new mana boots. It seems like Earthshaker really likes this item. Blink Dagger into Aghanim Shard, and just playing to be this, like, I know I said Blink Initiators are not super popular, but people are playing to just stun from a distance. And his Echo Slam, the damage on it got buffed. It was not hugely significant, but any extra damage on this hero, I feel like you do notice it because he is all about that like wombo combo in the team fight, and sometimes people will get away like 10% HP. So people are literally just playing this hero as like a Blink Initiator. That's it. And then eventually, like if you're doing well enough, you can build into a Bloodstone, which is very good with his Aftershock. Dark Seer. So this is one of the best buffing heroes in the game. That he might even be B tier. It's just that when we get into the B and the A tier heroes, you'll see why they're there. They're either like overpowered or Vlad's builders. So Dark Seer is still a Greaves building, maybe Solar Crest building. Like if Greaves was OP, he'd be S tier. Soul Ring, decent item. Like the build on Dark Seer hasn't really changed. You probably would go Solar because it's just really OP and he's good at buffing one hero. Illusion heroes are not ultra popular as safe laners. Like if Terrorblade was very strong, then Dark Seer would be better. Underlord would be better. Necro would probably be better. But it's just a fine Dark Seer patch. Also, Earth Spirit, Tusk they're okay. Tiny's pretty good. But if you want to play a Dark Seer combo in pubs, I don't know, good luck unless you're duoing with somebody. If you are duoing with somebody who is very good at playing those heroes a combo with the Dark Seer, I actually do think it's like way higher tier. But it's just so fucking hard in pubs. Same thing with Doom. I have the same issue with Doom where I feel like this hero is, you can feed, you can be useless. Your target priority is very important, especially because Doom now cannot be denied, which is very nice. Shiva's Guard is the item everybody's going for on Doom. It does a lot of damage with his W. But with that being said, the win rate on it is very low despite a lot of these pros playing it. So I'm very conflicted on the hero. It's one of the lower win rate heroes on this list so far. Despite like, 33 and S tier offlaners like that playing the shit out of this hero. So I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it. The patch is fairly new. Magnus. Now Magnus does more damage based on how far you skewer people. It is cool. People were already playing a offlane skewer based Magnus, where you're just trying to play like Collapse. So I realize I'm saying that, and he's in C tier, and probably last time I probably put him in B tier. There's reasons for that, which we will get into. I actually think the C tier heroes are all not bad. These offlaners are, the D tier ones are bad. Like, depending on, there's just a lot of offlaners that are very viable, but then there's also a very big power difference between the tiers, where the C tier ones are good, are decent. The D tier ones are like very bad. Dawnbreaker, so they made it so her W has more of a fire trail. The duration on it was increased, which is significant because it means when you're pushing out the safe lane or you're pushing out wherever you want to go, where your team is not, it's very dangerous to go there, and you're ulting into your team. You can do it safely without having to walk up and press your buttons on the creeps, and you're going to get more last hits doing that, which is like basically your entire game. You literally sit in a lane and just jerk off and do nothing until your team fights, then you ult in. That's how you do it. But I will say there are heroes that are very good against Dawnbreaker that are popular in this patch. Like Nyx Assassin is one of the most picked heroes currently, and that hard counter, you just walk into her ult with Carapace and she can't ult in ever. It's very sad. And you can hunt her on the side lanes. Razor, they buffed his passive. They increased the damage on it. They increased the slow on it. They increased the static link duration of the chain. So you're stealing more damage, but they've reduced the damage steal on static link as well. To make up for that, he's okay. He was very good when 7.35 came out originally because you would go solar on him. You'd put it on yourself. You'd be tanky. You'd gain move speed. You'd gain attack speed. Razor likes all of those things. He fell a bunch of tiers when the B patch came out, and so did his win rate. It fell pretty hard. Moving along to the B tier. There's some ones in here that I'm very excited about, actually. Okay. Not this one. This is Lone Druid. He was very overpowered on the previous patch, and he is fucking overpowered for the same reasons, for God's sakes. So they just nerfed his Spirit Link in the early levels. Whatever, you can't feel it that much. I would say the reason this hero is not S tier, despite feeling pretty damn cancer in most games, is that I think a lot of the popular heroes are actually good against Lone Druid. Spirit Breaker, for example, good at charging and getting on top of Lone Druid, the main hero, and that's a very popular hero. Batrider, also good against Lone Druid. That's a popular hero. At least a lot of people are playing Batrider and maybe not winning with it so much, especially if it's in the offlane position. But it doesn't feel as good to play Lone Druid as it did on the previous patch. Slardar is very strong too. That destroys the bear. But I'm saying all of that from the position that Lone Druid is absolutely broken. The meta's not good for him, and yet he's so good that he's still B tier. So that's where he's at right now. Brewmaster, Vlad's is good on him. Radiance is still a good item. The Brew build, where you're just buffing up the pandas and playing with the Aghanim Shard and trying to be ulted for as long as humanly possible. You can also get a Vessel. Vessel's a very strong item right now. You need magic damage. This hero does lots of magic damage. He has lots of team fight. He lanes very well with a lot of the popular fours. Rubik is strong again, very good with Brew. Like Rubik Brew is a classic combo. Dark Willow Brew. Brew is still good. He's just a good hero. Kunkka, despite the Blade Mail and Heart build kind of falling off and Torrent Storm being nerfed as well and his talents being nerfed, he is still good. You still go Blade Mail. There's nothing that has changed there. It is sometimes like a Blade Mail into Shiva's build. Maybe it's a Shiva's into Blade Mail. The only thing I would say is that there's not so much Heart being built on Kunkka anymore. It's mostly the Ags still playing around the Torrent Storm because it's still good. So he's fallen off from S tier, but he's still decent. Dragonite, I can't believe I'm putting this hero somewhere other than D or dogshit tier. But his Corrosive Breath, the whatever the passive is that comes from his ult, now applies when you breathe fire on people. So if you breathe fire on somebody and you're level 18, even when you're not dragon formed, it slows the shit out of them. It's so good. It is so damn good. That he has this like extra disable and extra damage on his breathe fire. And I think also, I'm sure there's an offlane build that you can do on him. I still see people going for like Blink, Midas, Bracers, just typical boring shit. I'm sure you could probably go Shivas. I'm sure you could probably go Solar and just play him like a utility hero. But I don't know. We'll see. I like this hero, so I'll see if I can figure out some build with him. Viper. The big thing with this hero is they took the break off of Nether Toxin and they put it on his ult. And this is a BKB piercing ult, remember. And Nether Toxin, people would just fucking walk out of it. So if somebody needs to be broken in a game, you just say, hey, I'm going to go Viper. You're broken. and then they're broken. It's very good. People are still going for the Aghanim Scepter build where you're playing around all of the talents, increasing his passive, and then using his passive to do a lot of damage and be unkillable. But they did nerf the passive talents. So the Aghanim Scepter build has fallen off a little bit, but I think this hero is still going to be fairly busted just considering his ult breaks. Everybody's going Shivas. Like Dragonlance is still a thing. You're still right-clicking a bit, but people are building very tanky on Viper. Pudge, I cannot fucking believe I'm putting this hero somewhere other than D tier, dog shit tier, or leaving him off the list. Pudge is genuinely a good hero. And I know that because he has a 50% win rate, and people like playing this hero, and also people grief with this hero. So if this guy has a 50% win rate, you know he's good. And the reason he's good is because there are some heroes, you can immediately tell I'm much more excited to talk about Pudge than any of these other offlaners. There's a few heroes in this list, or a few heroes in Dota, I'll say, that they are bad, not because the hero is trash, but because they lack a build. And because they lack a proper build, that makes the hero trash. So Pudge didn't have something that he could go for that felt good. And now he does. The Veil First feels amazing because it amplifies your rot. It amplifies your pure damage. It gives you armor that you desperately need. It gives you regen that you desperately need in the laning phase because you're fucking killing yourself with rot. And Eternal Shroud is the next item that people go for on him, where you pop Flesh Heap. That lets you get to max stacks of the Eternal Shroud. And then Flesh Heap wears off, and you have a ton of magic resist from the Eternal Shroud. It's genuinely very good. You can become unkillable on Pudge quite easily right now. It's very good. Bounty Hunter, another hero that I'm very excited about to have on this list. The main reason that I think that he's strong is, well, there's a lot of buffs that have happened to the hero in the previous few patches. Like, a lot of them. So these are all good. These are very good buffs. But the main thing that's really cool with him on this current patch is the Phylactery upgrade item, which I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Conda. That item applies his attack damage with his Janata. So you track somebody and they take like 400 damage magic, and then you can nuke them down with your actual Janata because it does not consume it, which is insane. So the build on this hero feels amazing. People were already going Phylactery, and now you have that upgraded Phylactery, and you get the money for it because you're Bounty Hunter and you track and you kill people. All right, now we're getting to the absolutely juicy tiers, and we'll start with, of course, the A tier. Ladies and gentlemen, these are Vlad's buyers, mostly. Vlad's got buffed. It can be disassembled, and it costs 250 gold less, and this is a timing item. Vlad's is about grouping up with your team and having an aura that they don't have and being very strong at an early timing, and now it's earlier. So Tidehunter is one of the best Vlad's heroes in the game. Why? Because he's Ravage, and also now he's dead in the water. The Aghanim Shard is fucking broken. But with that being said, you just go in there, you Ravage. The hero's always been an aura bot, and he has always loved going Vlad's. You press Anchor Smash on a creep wave, you heal the full HP because of Vlad's, especially if there's a hero there. So Tide is good. Dead in the water, most annoying Aghanim Shard in the entire game, by far. Broodmother, also a Vlad's buyer. Not many people are going for it. Solar Crest buyer, not many people are going for that on her. You could probably, it would be good. I'm sure there's builds that work. The main reason she is very strong is because Bloodthorn now applies a little bit of magic damage on every hit. Guess what? Spiders count towards that. So you can absolutely full to zero people on Broodmother. It is insane. The only problem with her, and the reason she's not S tier, given this abuse, is that by the time you get the Bloodthorn, heroes have stuff to take it off. It's a very expensive item for what it does. But when you get there, the supports hate their lives. You're going to full to zero them. It's very strong. And maybe there's a build where it's like Sheep Bloodthorn, where you play around the fact that you know they're going to be able to take it off, and you can kill them in the Sheep. And maybe she's S tier. I think Game and Gladiators would say that she... Lycan, I mean, what do I got to say? Vlad's is good. He's the best Vlad's buyer in the game. They just buffed his Wolves to do a little bit more damage. They gave him a little bit more crit on his ult, which, of course, all of his summons get. Dom 2 is a buffed item. It gives a lot of stats. It's a very strong item. Lycan is busted. The only issue with him is potentially laning. I think you have to be good at microing Wolves. You have to be good at not taking too much harass. You get to 6, you push everybody out of lane. You make supports want to Sudoku themselves. Enigma. Also an amazing Vlad's buyer. You are not useless with these fucking Eidolons anymore. They've been buffed a lot. They used to be quite bad. Great solar builder. Like, essentially, he likes building the aura bitch items, and that's kind of what the offlane is about right now. All the heroes that I have put in the A and the S tier are either broken heroes because they're just way too overbuffed, or they're aura bitch. Slardar, not an aura bitch hero. I think the build on him is... I still see people going solar, but honestly, it's still a lot of Mask of Madness / Echo Saber into Aghanim Scepter, Octarine, and you're just playing to keep a bunch of puddles up, be unkillable, be that hero that's chasing people, stunning them through BKB, amplifying damage. You don't really need damage items to do damage on this hero because you do so much with your bash, with the passive component that comes with being in water, with the bash, and with amplify damage. So everybody's just going utility on Slardar. It's still very strong. Very good also with a lot of the 4 positions people are picking right now. Visage, one of the best Vlad's buyers in the game. I think ever since they made him a universal hero, his side laning got a lot better because he has a ton of attack range, and you can go for stat items and have a ton of attack damage, which you couldn't have before. And his level 1 through 6 is the only part of the game where he remotely struggles. That's not too much of an issue anymore. So with Visage, the main thing is, like, I think the builds that are very strong right now are just already Visage builds. Drum boots are fine as well. People love that item. Timbersaw. So I think on this hero, if I'm not mistaken, they increased Whirling Death damage. Bloodstone was buffed, so people are going for that because it increases the range on all of his stuff, the AoE on all of his stuff. It no longer gives mana, so it's a little bit worse on Timber. He was actually S tier before that change. They buffed his reactive armor at level 1, and then they subsequently nerfed it in the B patch, but it still feels like a fairly decent level 1 ability. The main reason this hero is very strong, though, is because Shiva's is broken, and this is one of the best Shiva's heroes in Dota. That is the main reason, but that got nerfed. A couple of other things with this hero got nerfed, so he fell from like triple S tier to just A tier. So he's decent now. Not decent. He's very good right now, but compared to before, relatively speaking, he's decent. Spiritbreaker. This also was an S tier hero at the start of the 7.35 patch because you could charge in, Solar Crest yourself. You gain a bunch of move speed, which means your bash does more damage. You gain a bunch of attack speed, which means you're attacking more and bashing more. But no longer are you going to be able to put that on yourself and get that attack speed and that move speed. So it's people are literally just building the 7.34 items on Spiritbreaker, which is Shadowblade minus Octarine. And it turns out it's still good. Oh no, it's another fucking Spiritbreaker patch. And I think there's a lot of heroes right now in the meta where having a Spiritbreaker to charge them, like some Bounty Hunter running around, some Lone Druid, a Broodmother, it feels really good to have Spiritbreaker in the game to catch these annoying, finicky heroes. I've mentioned this already. A lot of these offlaners are heroes that sit in a lane and farm and take over the map. Spiritbreaker is one of the best heroes at dealing with that sort of bullshit, honestly. Pun intended. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, what we've all been waiting for, the S tier, is not important because the good times tier is here. It's Morphling. He's fucking bad, guys. Konda's not good. It's not good on him. It is good on him, but it's not a good item. I wish it was. I wish this hero could lane at level 1 without just instantly losing the game. It's very fun, though. He turns into other guys. You guys should try it. It's very fun. Not a good offlaner, though. Okay, Primal Beast is an S tier offlaner. He has a 58% win rate on this patch currently, and I think a huge reason for that is because the Veil into Shiva's build feels better on him than any other hero in the game. He really needs the damage amplification. He can often kill heroes with that extra damage and can't kill them without the extra damage. So it gives you that like threshold that you now pass. He really needed the armor as well in the early game just to have strong side laning and not being able to get harassed out. And he has a BKB piercing ult. He has not been nerfed remotely enough from the previous patch. His Aghanim Shard just got buffed. I see people going for that as soon as possible. It actually seems very good and very consistent now. So Primal, broken, as usual. But now as a side laner, which is fun for us offlaners because he's a very funny hero. Death Prophet. So in 7.35, she was busted because she's one of the best Solar Crest builders in the game. They also reworked some of her spells. Silence now slows a little bit. Now they changed it in 7.35b where silence no longer is 6 seconds. And the later level, it's like 5 seconds. But the early level, you've got 0.5 seconds more on the silence, which makes it more of a 1-point wonder, which is great because people were going 4-1-4. So I actually think this might have been a buff. Her win rate went up with that patch. People are going for Solar, Shivas, Greaves, Sanjay Kaya, these items are all very popular, very strong. This is not a Vlad's builder, but she enjoys the other offlane builds. And the thing with her is that, yes, she enjoyed the move speed that came from Solar, but the point of putting a Solar on yourself as Death Prophet is just so you don't get bursted, and then you can get a bunch of her Spirit Siphons off. You can still do that with Solar. She cares a lot less about the B-patch Solar nerfs than other heroes. Same with Abaddon. He can go for a Solar and play as a support bitch from the offlane. That's decent. But most people are just abusing the fact that the passive now does damage. Going Vlad's, going Radiance. This build is amazing. Abaddon's one of the best Vlad's Radiance builders in the game. It's insanely good for scaling. It's insanely good for giving utility to your team. This hero is very strong. And the main reason for it, like I said, is the fact that his passive now does damage. People are playing this hero as a carry even, given this passive, going for like a Manta style, which is fine as an offlaner because he's a universal hero. So you can still go for that build. Speaking of universal heroes, Beastmaster. They just reduced the boar cooldown significantly, while also buffing Vlad's, which I am a little shocked about because this hero, I mean, traditionally, when the boar is good, this hero is good. The boar is like everything about laning, or at least for a long, long time it was, before Wild Axis got Giga buffed, which is still very good, by the way. You can still play into illusion heroes very nicely as Beastmaster, which used to be the counter to him. But yeah, the summons build is very good. Dom 2 is a solid build. Vlad's is an amazing item. And especially because, like, Beastmaster is probably the most timing dependent hero in Dota, where you just want to get to that Dom, you want to get to that Vlad's as soon as humanly possible. Once you get there, you're just an absolute fucking animal. Pun intended. I was trying to think of something that wasn't related to beast or animal for that compliment to the hero, but I couldn't, so I just said it. Anyway, hero's very strong, best Vlad's builder in Dota, or one of them, and that is why he is S tier, as well as the buff that he got to his boar, which is quite nice. Unfortunate, because Beastmaster is very boring. Get it? Anyway, that's the tier list. End the video.